In my plans to do a kind of history of this area, I figured the only way to really go about it right is to start off with the geography, because everything goes from the geography. In order to do that, you have to go back 100,000 years. Okay, you can see there's a representation here of the North American continent. We've got the Great Lakes, we've got Hudson Bay, Greenland up there. But about 100,000 years ago, there started an ice age, pretty much centered, the glacier started pretty much over the Hudson Bay area. Make use of that glacier. We need more ice. It was a big glacier. Now up in this area, it got to be a couple of miles thick, at least. Now you come down into North Dakota, tapered off to about a mile deep. But it actually went clean down into Iowa. Covered a huge area. And it sat there, building up until the peak about 20,000 years ago. But we'll let the glacier melt a little here and have a beer in the meantime. It took a while. It took 80,000 years for this thing to melt, so for it to start melting. So it'll be a bit. Okay, about 10,000 years ago, the glacier is starting to retreat. There's a lake forming down in South Dakota, Iowa, back into the Dakotas, later called Lake Agassiz. But at this point, it's draining, starting to drain down the Minnesota River Valley into the Mississippi and into the Gulf. At this same period of time, a huge amount of water is tied up in this glacier. So the ocean level has dropped 150 to 250 feet, which opened up the Bering Strait, and people came across. So they come across there in kind of waves as the glacier goes back and forth and spread through this whole continent and clean down into South America. Okay, like I say, this lake is building up, draining down south. Gets to be a certain point in there where the ice level drops enough that the ice pulls back and the water drains into the Great Lakes. It goes out that way. And when this happened, supposedly, the theory is it was just a few weeks. Boom, a lot of water gone. But still, so the lake is starting to drop, but still, this lake is huge. It depressed the crust of the earth. The amount of weight of the ice in the water actually depressed the crust of the earth about 400 feet. And it gradually is springing back, still about this much a year. The lake bottom is springing back. But as this is going back, there gets to be a point in there where it can start draining into Hudson's Bay rather than going to the Great Lakes. So this whole, there's still ice up here, but this whole thing is starting to drain off through Hudson's Bay. But we still got a huge lake, biggest lake in the world. It holds more water than all the other lakes of the world combined. And as that's dropping, the ice from this area is settling, is melting, and starting to run into the lake bottom. And by the way, as the glacier pushed down, it pushed all the rocks and gravel down here. You go just even 20 miles south of here, there's all kinds of gravel. You will not find a rock out here. If you do, it was brought in. There's no rocks around here. It's all buried. And I'll explain why in a minute. This is the Cheyenne River. The Red River runs the border of Minnesota and North Dakota. And that's the drainage yet today. But the Cheyenne River, which I live along, runs down and goes into the Red. But it starts way up in the middle of the state. But I need more water. Okay, as the glacier is moving back, the water's starting to drain into Hudson Bay. The water coming off the high ground on the western side of North Dakota is bringing all the black, loamy clays and silts into the valley. As the water washes down, it'll leave the gravel back here. Goes a little further, the sand will drop out, which is what this is. This is the sand that washed in from the glacier. But the clays and the silts are lighter, so they carried on and spread out to the whole valley. So you end up with one vast plain of really rich loam that's just flatter than a pancake. And eventually, it was like a mud flat, and there really wasn't any trees there. There hadn't had time to trees. They gradually moved in along the rivers, like along here, which is where my trees come from. But there was grass, huge tall grass. And when people came across the Bering Strait, also came bison and woolly mammoths. They moved in. And today, we still have buffalo, not running wild, but there's still a lot of buffalo around. But this whole area was nothing but one vast grazing plain. But it all because of what washed in from here. You go a little further over, then you get the Missouri River, which runs down right and mixes up with the Mississippi. But this water is running north, which is important because later on in the history of the state, it's important which way the water drained. But hopefully this makes some sense to you. It does to me, but we'll see. But it'll be important later on. But that's enough continent building for the day. It's got to be a 3-beer job.